this actually brings us to our following sessions, where we'll learn more about how to really combine the theory of data protection and enable processes in your daily practice. And Andreas Beck, he's a privacy specialist at OneTrust, will talk about third party as a compliance focus, because it's one of the major topics, I think, of all GDPR and data protection professionals. So Andreas, great to have you with us today. I'm giving the floor to you.
Thank you. Thanks very much for the introduction, and thank you very much for joining this session. Yes, third party as compliance focus. So an increasing burden, I would even say, for organizations to assess, get to know their third parties, their vendors, other organizations they work with from various compliance aspects. Obviously, there are privacy consortiums too, but also there are risks from cybersecurity aspects, other ethical misconduct maybe. So I'm thinking of corruption, child labor, and all these things that organizations have to be aware of, and of course have to cope with in practice, which puts them in a challenge. So what we want to do today, look at this from a more practical angle. Of course, we speak with many organizations, have developed best practices, and also how we support customers with our tools. So yeah, I'll speak about the general challenges around third parties, and also possible solutions, or well, I don't know whether there are solutions, at least how technology can help with this topic. Since this is such a broad topic, and we have more a privacy-focused audience here, we will be focusing on data transfers as an example, but of course, the third parties and compliance is a way broader topic. So if you're interested to go more into depth here, please feel free to reach out to us, and we'll be happy to also have a broader discussion on that. So yeah, the agenda will be I'll give a brief update on where we stand with data transfers, what the challenges are that customers have, and we'll talk about how we could implement this requirements in practice, and especially when it comes to data transfers. I think you're very well aware that here we can only rely on best practices, as there's no real, I don't know how to say it, a rule or a law here. So organizations are pretty much left alone, and are dependent on best practice solutions. But to start with, I want to say a few things about trust in general and transparency. So this has really become a competitive advantage. What you see from this iPhone or Apple ad. Yeah, so people are more and more aware of it, and it's really differentiates across customers. So therefore, organizations have to be more and more aware of how they behave, and privacy is one part of it. But I think generally ethical action is very important. That's something people and especially customers are aware of. And of course, it's not sufficient to act ethical as an organization. Of course, you have to make sure that all your third parties, all your vendors work with you, adhere to the same standards. Yeah, and this is what it's about today. So just starting, as said, with data transfers. So what do we have? First of all, yeah, we have this famous Schrems decision, which has brought a lot of uncertainty into the privacy market. So people have, especially data exporters, have a lot of burdens, have needs to know a lot of from the customers, and they're at best maybe guidelines from the regulators, but not real rules. This is still an ongoing discussion that we have with our customers, where we try to develop strategies and ideas how to go on with this. So we had recently we had some updates in that regard. So we have at least the renewed standard contractual clauses, which gives at least more certainty when it comes to data transfers. And finally, the next step, very recent, the guidance from the DPB on supplementary measures for international data transfers, that will have also an important topic here. So keep this in mind. And in addition, in Germany, to make things even more difficult, we have very active, very engaged authorities on state level, yeah, which have their own thoughts, opinions, guidelines, and also the DSK, which makes it even more complex to deal with this topic. Yeah, I would, if to summarize, the authority stance in a very, very condensed way. I would say whatever you do, you have to document your data transfers, the associated risks. Also, you have identified with regards to your vendors and the measures you have taken. And yeah, this is what we essentially see, what our customers do. And of course, it helps to have, first of all, technology supporting you, and to have also a central platform where you can manage risks according to vendors. And so this is what we'll be touching base on today. So looking at this in practice, and you can speak of data transfers, but I think this is also a general point when it comes to assessing third parties, is of course the challenges that both sides face. On the one hand, they're exporters, yeah, who especially in when it comes to data transfers, have most of the responsibility. So they have to really know what happens with the data they process, what happens with their customers' privacy, or they are responsible for protecting customers' privacy, yeah, which of course gives them this huge challenge to evaluate the risks associated to transfers. Yeah, they have to really assess large volumes of transfers, large volumes of vendors, or large data about values. Yeah, and they have also to document what they have found, and they have document why they believe that transfers are valid. On the other hand, of course, importers face huge influx of requests. They have to prepare for a huge volume of inquiries from their customers, yeah, on how do they transfer data, or how do they process data, yeah, hosting locations and so on. So they have also to showcase what security measures they have taken, and to respond to these requirements in general. So that's really, so maybe you have once implemented all your measures, but still there's every single customer of you is inquiring you, and that causes, of course, a lot of work. So as a first idea that we have introduced is, hey, instead of doing for every vendor, for every or for every exporter, importer, doing this exchange individually, why not establish a central platform where this type of information can be exchanged already? So this is why we what we call the third-party risk exchange. So where importers can share data on about themselves, share trust profiles, share their measures, and exporters can access this platform very easily and have a first impression or start their due diligence already via this platform. But I'll go more into this later. So if we go back to data transfers and look at this, so we really, what we see in practice, how to deal with data transfers is really the risk-based approach. And we are well aware that the EDPB does not explicitly recommend a risk-based approach. But what we see in practice, however, and this is also our yeah, what we think, is this is the best way to handle international data transfers. Because in the end, it will give you a good overview where you have risks associated to transfers and help you ultimately prioritize transfers, or even, yeah, you will see where you might have to fix things, mitigate risks. So this is why we'll be focusing on the risk-based approach here. And so you'll see we see 4 main steps here. So first of all, you have to know your transfers, of course. So you might need to bring your register of processing activities up to date. And I really hope that every one of you has done so already. Then you'll need to perform the famous transfer impact assessment, which I'll show you how a little later. Mitigate and adopt measures, of course, very important when it comes to transfers, of course. And of course, ongoing monitoring and reevaluation is very important here. So looking into point 1, I will be very quick here. As said, I would expect that most of you have done so. But what would you do as a first step? Of course, you would update your register of processing activities. So with all transfer related data, So which are the vendors, what is the transfer mechanism, which countries are involved, and as a next step, you would ideally link all this information to your processing directory in order to get a visualization of your transfers, because it's nice to have tables, reports, but in the end we are humans, and such visualization is easier for us to read, and also easier to analyze transfers actually, which also brings you to such views to really identify potential risks or issues on a first glance start with. Yeah. So this is the point which hopefully every one of us has concluded on already. Going to the next point, I think, which is a huge exercise and a huge topic. So perform transfer impact assessment. So how would you go about this? Of course, first of all, third country assessment. This is of course a huge project also for every organization to assess the third country equivalency. Also, you have to go through all your vendors that you're working already and reassess them, analyze where might be risks, how are they performing their transfers. You would have to go ahead with an additional transfer impact assessments, and you might even have to rely on external parties. And so looking into this again, how would you go with this? So first of all, by the EDPB guidance, of course, you would have assess the third country equivalency. That's something as a first step, or maybe, and then as a second step, you would transfer the actual, you would assess the actual transfer. So in practice, this could go separately or even combined. So it might be even efficient to have this combined, have it in one questionnaire. I'll show this later on. And depending on your results and 1 and 2, you would also assess the supplementary measures. And here, going into practice, how would you do it? So be in OneTrust, in our vendorpedia platform, we have various templates for this, where we have already pre-built the relevant questions for you. So first of all, you would assess the equivalency review of the particular state to have an idea of this. Actually, we are even working to complete this assessments for our customers, so such that these are pre-assessed going forward. Then as a second step, you could access vendor information. This is what I was talking about, leveraging third-party information. There are many vendors such as OneTrust that have collected information about vendors. So I was talking about the exchange, where vendors can share information to make this access more easy. So use these tools, use this work that has been done already to get information about your vendor, to save work here on this. And finally, of course, you would have also the actual impact assessment. So this is here also where we've pre-built dynamic assessment, which will really build based on the answers you've given. So it automatically adopts to or shows you the relevant questions depending on what type of processing activity you're assessing, what type of country. So very dynamic questionnaire, so such that you have it in one questionnaire, you can assess a transfer for every processing activity. And of course, the results from this assessment will be saved in your tool, in your central database, so that you have everything at one place in the end. Yeah, in the end, well, finally, I'm pretty sure that you will detect risks, associated to transfers. So maybe there is no adequacy. So, and what do you do with this risk? So first of all, based on the risks that you identify, you can prioritize which transfers you want to look at first, because again, there's the guidance from regulatory authorities is not clear enough what has to be done. So first of all, of course, you would go to the processing activities with the highest risk. You would work with internal risk owners. You could assign tasks to external vendors, and of course, this is all easier when you also work in a central tool rather than shooting email and Excel templates all around. And then you can take real actions, to remediate risks. And in the end, you can decide, have we remediated the risks to an appropriate level, or will we need to reject this vendor? And of course, you have to also document this process, how you have come to this discussion. There it also helps to have an audit-proof system and tool to really prove your measures. And yeah, how would it look like? Here you see an example, switching back, often the risk register, where you see all the risks at one glance. Also, what really helps is to see at the first glance what measures have been taken. Have you assigned any standards, framework, so that you can see, okay, how has risk been mediated, remediated? And again, here, everything is in one platform, such that you can also later prove what you have done when the regulatory authority conducts an audit, or even for internal audits. And finally, you come to monitoring and reevaluate. So it's not done once you have onboarded the vendor. Of course, you have to reassess him on an ongoing basis. So you have really monitor third country updates, regulatory updates, and everything. So here again, it really makes sense to rely on information from vendors and also make sure that you have an automate or reassessment on a regular basis. So here you could work for with automation rules, for instance, where you could say, hey, for high risk vendors, I want to have a reassessment on a semi-annual basis, such that I'm always aware of what's going on there, whether there are updates, whether risks are mitigated. And when it comes to monitoring levels of data protection and regulatory developments, here again, there are many vendors offering databases, such as OneTrust also does. So Data Guidance, our specialist, always bring the latest regulatory updates and requirements into our system to ensure that you are up to date when it comes to be it data transfers or even other regulatory requirements, be it cybersecurity requirements, maybe even compliance requirements. So there are laws in Germany like the Lieferkettengesetz. All right, so concluding here with with the exporter. So you see, I'll have to rush a little bit, but I think we have 5 more minutes to conclude this one. I want to still have a look at what data importers can actually done, and also to tackle their challenges. So first of all, you have to be ready for all the inquiries that you have. So you need to have documentation in place. So document what you have done, such that you can share it. And then again, build your profile, such that your customers can inquire your information easily, and maybe you want even automate responses to transfer impact assessment inquiries from customers. And I'll show you in a little bit how you could do this. But let's start with point 1 actually. So how can you make your life easier? Of course, editable templates are super helpful. Such that you can complete this with information from your data mapping, maybe even automatically drag this data from your data map into an SAC template. Of course, you have to manage and keep your policies up to date. This is also something that can be where software can support you to make this very efficient. And also publishing these policies and transparency report directly to your website. First of all, it is, of course, a sign of trust, and it helps also your customers to get a first idea about your company. So, you could publish your certifications. Transparency reports are very important. So this would be the first step for every customer when evaluating an importer, going to the website and see their trust page or their trust profile, as we call it. Where you can share all your data and make it transparent. Speaking of the trust profile, what do we mean by that? So this is really a page on your website where you aggregate all your trust, transparency, and compliance relevant topics, numbers on your website, and to make it accessible for everyone. So I was speaking of trust as a competitive advantage, and this is also where this idea really comes from. Be transparent to customers, be transparent to external stakeholders. Another action point might be in publishing your profile to external platforms like our third-party risk exchange. Again, making your data accessible, easy accessible for your customers. And then finally, point 3. Okay. Yeah, this is an example how such a trust profile looks in OneTrust. So you see a brief overview of the details, then you can access assessments. So we offer standardized assessments that vendors can complete and make them available for their customers, and also certification. So your customer gets on the OneTrust vendor profile and has all the relevant information on the first glance, which already saves a lot of work. Similar here, you'll see how you can upload all types of documents and files and certificates. So this is really just a brief overview. Going into point 3, automate responses. How can you automate responses to assessments? And this is, I think, a very exciting topic for many vendors. So we've basically built a tool based on AI language processing, where you can build a catalog of standard answers to questions. So usually, and we see it in our teams, yeah, our response teams, they just match from catalog of answers to the questions that we get from customers. And this is something that can be automated, yeah. And and AI has come to the point that where we can really recognize language very well, and then also understand, yeah, what's asked there. So and this is what we basically do. So you have a catalog of answers that you have provided into the system. Then the system receives an assessment, or you upload an assessment to the system, and then the system basically matches your pre-provided answers to the questions. And here's an example. You see even the confidence level that the system has. So here the AI returns at this point, I'm 69% certain that I got the answer right. At this point, I'm 91% certain. So here you might need another look. Here you can be pretty confident that you got the answer right. And of course, the system also learns with the time. So when you correct the answer, it will do better next time. Yeah, this is how it would actually work. So you have your catalog, you upload a document, a questionnaire, and then the system matches this with the questions. All right, thank you very much for your interest and for listening. This was a very quick session. So as said, if you want to dig deeper into any of these topics or expand also beyond privacy, as said, cybersecurity, compliance, please reach out to us. We'll be very happy to have a deep look into these topics together with you. I'm not sure whether we have time for any questions, but I'll be happy to take.
Sadly no, Andreas. We're a bit over the time already. But if you have a few minutes, you can absolutely stay on the platform. And the audience, if you do have any questions for Andreas, just pop him a message. Yeah. That concludes this session. So thank you, Andreas, for taking the time. Hope to see you soon.